My name is Jimmy Dwayne Patrick. I was a second lieutenant in command of a Marine tank platoon in the Da Nang area in 1965.
Okay. And what story would you like to start out telling us today?
Well, I got a number. I'll start with telling you one when we were in a real open area and we're getting ready to move into some tropical thickets. So before I always take tanks in, I get out and make a foot recon. And so when I go, two of my men go with me, one carrying a Thompson submachine gun and the other carrying an M14 automatic. And then I carried a grease gun around my neck and a 45 in my hand. So we're out taking a look at what's going on, and I lay down in a rice paddy, and then the bank comes up, and I can just all I can see is my eyes and top of my head if anybody's looking. And I look out there, and here I see coming at me about a full company of armed and reinforced NVA, and we all had tremendous respect for them because they were horrendous fighters. And even though we were twice their size, you get in a hand-to-hand combat with them and fight them. They're just rough and tough, man. You have a hard time beating them. But I'm out there and I'm taking a look at everything, and all of a sudden I'm laying there, and this tiger comes up and puts his paw on my back and his head just above my head, and his drool is just running down the back of my neck. And because I have my 45, it's in a shoulder holster, and I'm trying to reach in and get my 45. I said, I'm going to shoot this son of a bitch. And he's standing over there drooling all over me, and here comes this company of NVA. And NVA fighters are tough guys. You get in with a company of them, you're in deep caca. So anyway, they see him. Instead of coming where I am, they make a hard right and go over about 100 yards and continue where they're going. So I thought, well, okay, that's good to know. And he didn't go anywhere. He just stayed there and held me down. And then he let go and took off and got over to the edge of the real thick bamboo forest and just turned and disappeared into it. And so there I am. Okay, now
How big was this?
his teeth were, his two front, whatever you call them, fangs or whatever, man, they were mammoth. And in fact, they were big enough, if I grabbed a hold of them, my hand would barely cover them. That's how big they were. Yeah, he urinated all over me I think he was urinating on me to hide my scent from the NVA. But at any rate, when he got to urinating on me, he just still stood there, and the NVA saw him, and they just made an immediate right and went a couple hundred yards to the right and then continued on up to wherever they were going to go. He, I'm laying in this rice paddy facing this one. He walks over to the right, walks up to where I am, and then looks right back at me. And I thought, wonder what he's trying to tell me.
But at that time, what was your thought?
I thought he was going to eat me. I thought, oh man, I'm dead meat. And he just walked away. Said, adios. When I came back into the platoon area, they said, man, what the heck happened to you? And I said, well, I happened to run into a tiger that was, I thought, going to eat me, but what he really did is he saved my life because there were a bunch of NVA coming right at me, and he came and stood over me, and I don't know why he urinated on me. I guess that was his thank you. And the NVA turned to their right and went the other way. They didn't want to bother with him or being, threatened by him.
And did you run into the tiger again?
Later on, yeah. some weeks or months later, I don't know which it was, but we were in a flat, open area, and we saw this kind of a, it wasn't a hill, but it was at least some high ground. And there he was, laying on the high ground, and he's all beat up, cut up and all that stuff. And I thought, what happened to him? So I told the tankers, let's go over and see what happened. And we went over, and he's laying there, and what must have happened is the only way I could figure he could get a wound like that is there must have been a rifle shot that hit a rock or something, then ricocheted, and when it ricocheted, it went in right below his rib cage and came out by his almost to where his tail was, and what it did is it just ripped some flesh and some hide off and just folded it back. So he's laying there. He's probably not going to die from that wound, but he certainly isn't going to live if something wasn't done. So I thought, well, at least I owe him this. So I told my corpsman, get up here, I want you to sew this line up. He says, I'm not coming up there touching that animal, he'll eat me alive. I said, nah, he won't bother you. And so I went over and stood, he's laying down, I went over and sat by his head, and I held his big tooth, and petted his nose. I said, I'll keep him calm, go ahead, go and sew him up. And he did a nice job, got him all stitched back up, and the old tiger looked over at him and, kind of smiled, and, I guess it was a smile, I don't know what you call it. And that was it, man. He was happy as he could be. He wasn't strong enough to get up and move at that time, but we knew he was going to live. So my troop says, well, what are you going to do now? I said, what do you mean? He said, well, we're going to get the tarp and we're going to take him with us. I said, are you crazy? What do we want with a damn tiger? He said, you can't leave him here. He's seen humans. He thinks we're friendly. Somebody's going to kill him. We're going to take him with us. He's going to be our pet. I said, oh, great. Everybody needs a pet tiger. And then, of course, there were some cubs running around. And you know how young tankers are there. I think we have 5 tanks, and I think there was 6 cubs or 7. I don't remember exactly. And man, they came down, grabbed a cub each, and went back to their tanks, and they handed it down inside, and all the guys inside are petting this thing and just having a ball. And this little cat doesn't know what to think, but he's loving it. And Marines always got something to eat, sea rations. And we have a sea ration that's a combination of potatoes and I guess you'd say ground beef. And they had a can of that open, and they started feeding them that. Man, they were just as happy as they could be, just having a ball with all of them. So that's some of what was going on.
Well, tell them about the story when you got blown out of the tank.
Well, what the enemy had a habit of doing is that when we'd fire into an area with like our 105s or 155 cannons, and they detonate and explode and just send shrapnel everywhere and kill people. Well, not all of the rounds that hit would explode. So what they did is they found one that was not exploded, and they took it and they got some stone and dug a hole at about a 45-degree angle, and then they set that down in it, and then, covered it all up. So what they were really making was their own kind of landmine for the tank. So of course I didn't know it was there, so I was chugging along, climbing through the rice paddies, and what happened is my right front road wheel in the track ran over the edge of that, and if I would have run over it flat completely, it would have rolled that tank on its back. But instead of it blew it up, and it disintegrated 11 track block, blew the road wheel off, and those road wheels are like 36 inches diameter, 2 bolted together, and they got a road arm on them. They're a good 1,000 pounds. And it blew it at least 10 or 12 feet from the tank, and when it was all done, all you could see was the top of it sticking out of the sand. Well, here I am going up in the air, and I go shooting up in the air, and I'm accelerating, and I'm looking down, and I think, oh, shit, I hope I don't hit that tank when I fall down. Well, just as I go up between two palm trees, there's a mother monkey, a red-faced female monkey there with two babies, and she's nursing them, and her male is on the other one, and he didn't like my presence at all. He came running over, and he took a swat at me, and he just missed me, and his fist was as big as my head. I didn't know monkeys got that big, but man, he was one pissed off monkey. So, that happens, and I think to myself, well, and I go back down. I hope I just don't hit the back of that tank. Of course, I had a flak jacket on, so that would have been an advantage and would save me from getting killed. So when I came back down, I did hit the edge of the tank, and it threw me over, and I was still conscious, but I was pretty messed up. So that's what happened.
Were you seriously injured?
Yeah, my right hip, my right knee, and
You lost your hearing in one.
and I lost my hearing. And when they did the X-ray, they saw that it had hyperextended in my right knee so much that it torn a piece of the joint off. It had just like flipped it up. And there was that little piece hanging on the joint. And they said, we can't send him back in combat like that. He said, first time he puts any pressure in that, it's going to break loose, and he's going to be a detriment, not an asset. So that's when I got medevaced, and I was sent back to U.S. Naval Hospital, Da Nang, Vietnam. They fixed me up to where I could walk with a cane, but they said, you're never going to have full use of that knee again. It's not going to work properly, so we're going to have to medically discharge you from the Marine Corps. So your days as a Marine are all but over. And I didn't like hearing that at all, because I wanted to stay in and make it a career. But that was the long and the short of it, at least that part of it.
What did you do after that?
Yeah, I came back to U.S. and got my degrees and became a licensed psychologist, and made it known through all the community that I worked with people that and family that had suffered from their loved ones having PTSD. And I had a very busy, active clientele, because there were a lot of families that had been affected, and when the fathers came back, and the kids just couldn't understand how different they were, and it was hard on everyone. So I had a pleasure of trying to help some of those families in crisis. I was in private practice, but I would go and help the DAV and volunteer and help any of the families and so on.
Wow.
Our platoon was first units ashore, and we were very engaged. And we had over 150 confirmed kills, and some of those were hand-to-hand. And when we'd do a recon, I'd get out of the tank, and 2 men would come with me, one with an AR-15 automatic, and another with a Thompson submachine gun, and we go, checking areas out before we went into them. And that was interesting in and of itself, but a lot of times the enemy would be hiding, and they'd jump us, and we'd get in hand-to-hand combat with them, and boy, they were ferocious fighters. The first mistake I made, because one guy was somewhat smaller than I was, I didn't start doing 100% with them, and man, he about throttled me before I realized that, I better get busy here, or I'm going to be a dead man. So they were good fighters. I have immense respect for them. One of the most unpleasant processes of the war was to retrieve the dead or wounded of our enemy, and then we would put them on our tanks and take them back to headquarters. Because of the politics of that time, we had to have what you call a head count, how many enemy we'd killed or how many we'd wounded or captured. So that was not a very pleasant thing to do or have to do, but we did it because that's what we were ordered to do.
And when they added up with the numbers, how many?
Well, I think we had in excess of 150 confirmed kills, and then we brought 6 wounded back, and they were very pleased with that because they could interview them and try to get information out of them.
And did they give you any kind of citations or awards for the work you did?
Well, I got a Bronze Star and a Purple Heart for my work.
He has a special accommodation hanging on the wall, written from the Marines, for 100 kills by hand.
Wow.
And believe me, there's not many. I have never seen that. But it's actually in writing, and it's on his wall today as we speak. And so he's being
Modest.
very modest today. Yes.
Can I ask how old you were when you joined the Marines?
24.
24. So, did you sign up?
Yeah, I in college, the Marine officer recruiters came to our campus, and they explained a program they have that's called platoon leaders class training. And what it was is you go on to college where you are, you go the freshman year of your college, when you finish, you go to Quantico for 6 weeks, and they train you. And those first 6 weeks, and that first session is like what they do to all the enlisted at boot camp, and it was tough. They brought their best DIs, and they did the best they could to try to kill us. And they were very good, very thorough. We all admired and respected them as badly as they were treating us. And then the second time he went back, they trained you and taught you what you were supposed to know and do as a second lieutenant infantry platoon commander. And then when we finished that was the introduction to it. When we graduated from college, then we went back to Quantico to what was where we trained all of our officers, and it was called the basic school, and that's where we got our formal training to be a second lieutenant. And then as you completed that, there were a number of MOSs, military occupational specialties, that you could get. Well, I wanted tanks, so I put that in for my request, and I was fortunate enough to get tanks. And then I went from there to Del Mar, California, and that's where they trained me to be a commander for either tanks or Amtrak. And then if the best graduates got tanks, and then the others got the Amtrak. So I was fortunate enough to get tanks, and then you go to your unit, and then you have your experienced people train you. Well, I was the first group ready to go, the newbies, and we went right down to the beach. They loaded us on the transports. My sergeants and all our people got aboard, loaded the tanks, lashed the tanks down, and away we went. And my 2 platoon sergeants trained us aboard ship, taught us everything they could possibly teach us, and demonstrated stuff with us, and then down on the tanks and demonstrated. So we were well trained and ready to go to combat. We were, newbies. We had to learn.